All right. Let's do it. All
Let's
right.
do it. Let's chat.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. So welcome to Studio Visit episode 5 with Pete Halvorsen, the first photographer on the podcast. Super excited to have Pete here. Pete is an accomplished photographer that has many years of experience doing his own photography practice, and in addition to working with some of the world's top brands and companies and creating work for them. So super experienced photographer and friend of mine that we've been had the pleasure of knowing now for a couple years in this space, and also as a very prolific generative art collector and involved in the art blocks community and everything around that. So Pete, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And you're CJ, but I always knew you as Raven. For so long until we kind of took that relationship off Twitter and had our. It's like, oh, you have a real name. All right,
I
cool.
do. Yeah, exactly. I wasn't raised by ravens in the woods, like that's not exactly what happened.
But
But
it's also the beauty of this space too. When you can kind of have that. Yeah.
yeah, it's awesome. It's actually that my dad's this house is actually on Raven Circle. So back in the day, we my brothers and I were messing around with music and things like that, and I think that's where it came from, and it kind of stuck. And then I added obviously the leet
Art.
speak,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the
That
art
too.
part of
Yeah.
it too. So
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, let's jump in. So I just wanted to. Usually, I like to start out with kind of Pete. Like, where did you grow up and that kind of thing? Like, take me
Yeah.
back to the beginning.
Cool. I'll give you that in a nutshell. So I grew up in Northern California in Vineyard in the East Bay, and it's a place called Livermore. And like 30,000 people. The biggest thing we had is the Lawrence Livermore Lab, as well as a rodeo every year. So it kind of gives you a little idea of what that was like. But we were also about 20 miles outside of Berkeley and about 35 miles from San Francisco. So you were able to kind of get that urban escape when you wanted, but you definitely came back to more of a rural sticks and a place that's grown quite a bit. It's known for its vineyards now, and so grew up there. Really cool 80s kid as far as riding BMX bikes around, skateboarding, getting into trouble, and that kind of life, that ET life that we lived. And then left after high school and went to Santa Barbara, and I went to pursue a career as a baseball player. I thought I was gonna be a baseball player. Started playing in college, something I love to do, and found out pretty quickly through how big of a pool that is that was not going to end up becoming a reality. So pivoted while I was in college to I took a theater class that I needed to take for some credits, and actually fell in love with acting, fell in love with the theater. So spent the next uh, 10, 12 years after college and pursuing that. And that was great. I did plays, then I started doing some commercials. I did some small co-starring roles, and then I did some independent films as an actor, and which was a really, really neat experience, and something I look back at now very fondly, because it really it taught me to handle rejection. It taught me to um, uh, get in touch artistically with yourself, as far as vulnerability and how to best navigate situations. It also made me very comfortable in public speaking environments, and that ended up serving me well later, which I'll get into. But so I did that, and then my daughter was born in 2008, and I had slowly started to shift to photography. I started taking more photos, and that was a big moment for me. When my daughter was born, I decided, all right, I'm gonna be a stay-at-home dad. My wife works in finance, and she was like, all right, great, you're gonna, this. And back then, this wasn't as common as it is now. The stay-at-home
Yeah.
dad kind of mentality. There wasn't a lot of work from home opportunities or anything like that. So it gave me an opportunity to actually start taking photos while I was with her. And we live in Manhattan Beach, really beautiful place.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I started to take more photos. My friends who were actually who were real photographers at the time, who were shooting fashion editorial pieces, were saying, "Pete, you have a really good eye for this. You have something that you don't. It's hard to teach. You should start doing this more." And at first, I was like, "All right, you guys are just kind of
Yeah.
being nice. The stay-at-home dad, you're making me feel good." But then I started going, "Okay, actually, my images are different. There is something that I see, how I see the world is a little bit different." And I started getting, and I got a couple lucky breaks with people that I've known from being in Hollywood, being in town for as long as I was, and they started to give me opportunities to shoot small lookbooks, shoot small little jobs here and there that started to build my portfolio. And from there, one thing led to another, and I started getting larger jobs. But also, Instagram came to be, which was another turning point for me, because I saw pretty early on the opportunity that Instagram was going to create for photographers, and the opportunity that social media itself, with X and or Twitter at the time, and was going to amplify creators' opportunities within marketplaces. So I was early on Instagram. I was in the first million users there, and I saw it pretty quickly as an opportunity to get my work out there, but also to build a social following. And those same photographers who kind of boosted me up then were giving me a hard time. Like, "What are you doing on Instagram? This is like putting filters on things. That stuff, you don't do that. This is crazy. You're not going to be taken seriously at all." And then fast forward for them to a few years later, and their agents were telling them, "You need to get followers on Instagram because you're
Yeah.
losing out," because they want posts to be there as well. And then they're like,
Yeah.
"Pete, do I do hashtags, or what's the best way to get a following?" So I was able to gain a following on Instagram just through the images I was shooting around Manhattan Beach, and then that led its way into travel photography, which created a whole nother opportunity with shooting for travel brands, as well as hospitality, luxury, Four Seasons, Dorchester Collection, SPG, among others. And the niche I kind of found for myself was shooting, I always call it professional UGC. So you see images that are the user generated content that put you in the place, and they're not totally polished, in that it's not a true commercial image where everything's perfect. It looks like the bed's been slept in, or the coffee cup has a little bit of stuff on it. It's an image that you would take on vacation. Well, I'm going to take a similar image, but it's actually going to be with a real camera, and it's going to be staged in a way that has branding correct, models are correct, that type of thing. And then those images then get put into catalogs and used for the clients. So those opportunities again started to grow for me, and it also allowed me to travel around the world, and get paid for it, which was really, really cool. And that was um, all stemmed from Instagram, but it allowed me to then because I had a traditional background, I was able to shoot print for them, as well as digital images that they could then use on social media. So double-edged sword there. So that was kind of my journey into the photography.
That's great. And when you were growing up in NorCal, did you ever do photography, or is this something that you kind of just develop later, that you realize you one had an interest in, and then two, you had some skill for it as well?
No, no. I mean, I did as much as we did with disposable cameras,
Yeah.
and your Olympus point and shoot, and again, in the '80s, it was it also wasn't cheap. You had to
Yeah.
buy film, and you had to actually really be into it. So I wasn't as much into photography. I did more art. I did some painting and that type of stuff, but I didn't delve into photography until later. And I think for me also, I left out a few things along the way. One of them was I ended up getting my degree in film, so I did
Yep.
start to have the vision of behind the camera,
Yep.
which is, and while I was still an actor, I did want to learn what was happening behind the scenes. And so from a cinematography standpoint, I started to learn kind of some true basics, and some true
Yep.
ways to craft visually images. And I think the thing that helped me for still images that I really loved was being able to tell a story within one frame
Yeah.
versus, okay, you have, 30 minutes or an hour to tell this story. I was like, you get one shot, and then you tell what you want to tell as an artist, but you're also having an audience who may see something totally different, which I love from an art perspective. They're on their own journey. And
Yeah.
here you are like going, okay, well, this is what I saw, but what you take away may be totally different. This may remind you of, your dad or whatever it is. So that's always been a fun thing photography wise.
Yeah. And then it's just so interesting that, you went, you started with this baseball. Did you have, when you were doing baseball, did you have like big dreams of baseball? Like, and that was something that when you were a kid, you really wanted to make it to the MLB or, at least play collegiately? Was that
Yeah,
a
well,
big dream?
I was, it was, and I think I was just good enough to continue. It was like I was just good enough to continue making the team, and
Yeah.
just good enough to like be like, wow, you got some skill here. So I was like, okay, I could do this. It kept getting me there. So my dream wasn't cut short until all of a sudden, again, like I said, when I was in college and I was
Yeah.
around guys who were much better, and I was like, okay, like this pool is just getting bigger and bigger. This is,
I'm not a small fish in a big fish in a small pond anymore. Now I'm in the with the real talent.
Exactly. So for that, and I think that there was a few times in my life that those types of things happened to where I was aware enough to see, the winds change
Yeah.
for me and say, okay, set sail differently. You're like, let's not fight this. And, and also there's some soul searching again that happened. I feel like acting helped with that, because there is a method that you get into is tapping into yourself, vulnerability and storytelling, but also, finding out what makes you tick and then using that in characters. So I think that shift for me from an art perspective really allowed me to be a lot more in touch with what was coming next for me and being open to changing.
I can't imagine. It's so interesting to do the acting and the film thing, and I just see that just from afar again is like, it must be awesome it must be horrifying and also like, but awesome on the other side to like be in that industry and be dealing with all this rejection and things like that. And I'm sure in the moment and when you first started that, it's not easy at all, but I'm sure, like, I think you've alluded to that it developed in you some perseverance and, grit that you've now taken to photography and things like that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think to that point, there's someone once told me, is like, you either make it after you pay your dues, you make it before you pay your dues. The difference is if you make it before you pay your dues, if you're that that jump on the scene and all of a sudden are a big star, then you're paying your dues in public. You're paying your dues and everybody sees you crash and fall. But when you're paying your dues on the other side and you're going through exactly what you're talking about, 200 auditions without getting anything, or just a constant rejection of who you are. Oh, he looks like this, or this is, this was wrong, or his choices were, it's very personal rejection.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I looked at that resistance that I, was kind of creating for myself and said, wait a second, there's a bigger picture here for these producers and directors and casting directors that I'm working with. I'm on their team and I may not be right for this role, and let's find out. And it wasn't until like that shift happened for me that I wasn't going in for this personal rejection. I was like, hey, this is my idea for this character. And then they'd be like, no, that wasn't what I was like. Okay, cool. This didn't work out. And I'm moving on with that.
Like, it's just like, I just wish that, anything like that's so valuable in life is to not, it's so easy, especially something like you said, like acting, where it's like, it's not even just your necessarily your acting skills. It's like, oh, I don't like this guy's look. Like, he
reminds me of an ex-boyfriend or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Like, it's so like random. It could be anything, like anything about you, your personality, your appearance. It's
your
so
name.
Exactly. Like, it's just like so where any other industry, maybe, you know, they'd stick to, hopefully they would be sticking to your qualifications of, you know, how skillful you are and things like that. But like,
Right.
you know, it's completely fair game if anything can be brought in.
Yeah. Well,
And
it's true. And
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just saying, and that actually is translated, you know, within this particular space for me as an artist, to where sometimes there's a collector that just doesn't get your stuff,
Yeah.
you know, and you can be good friends with them and be like, hey, check this out, and then cool, you know, it's like, but it doesn't click for them, and I think that's a valuable lesson that I think we need to, as artists and even as collectors, be like open to that, like
Yeah.
it's okay. Your stuff's not going to vibe with everybody, and
It's
that's
just
fine.
such a, you know, it's just valuable. I would just think, like, even to everybody, I mean, job searching, everything like that, right? Like, you know, I think it's so easy to look at when you get face rejection to say they made a mistake, or to get negative, or to even, some people just shut down and they say, you know, okay, like, I'm
Yeah.
done. I don't want to keep trying this, you know, like, it's too much for me. And maybe, you know, maybe that's true. Maybe obviously everybody's not probably has what it takes to take that much rejection, like, at
Yeah.
being an actor, you know?
Right.
But you know, I think there's just such value there to, you know, dealing with the rejection, but like you said, doing it in a positive way and saying, hey, like, you know, it's like, you know, maybe it just wasn't a fit, or, you know, maybe I am right and I was good for it, but it just, that's the way it is, you know, and I need to move on. And in just having that positive outlook of it, that is, you know, moves everybody forward, right? And you're also
Yeah.
not burning a bridge either. You're just saying, hey, like, you know, like, you know, this wasn't the right fit, but maybe it will be in the future, right? And another
Yeah.
time.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that mentality of a partnership is good within projects, and it releases you from taking it personally. This didn't work out, great, and you know, one door shuts, a window opens somewhere else, that kind of thing. And I think one good example of that, kind of within my realm, and I had some mentors within the acting space who would always tell me, like, you're not gonna you're not going to truly make it until you fully release, like, you wanting to make it.
Yeah.
And I was always like, oh, whatever. But sure enough, like that was tried and true a number of times. And then even as recently as a few years back, I was shooting for Acura. I was shooting a campaign for Acura photos, and the creative director was like, "You were an actor, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." You still have your SAG card? Oh yeah, I'm still union. Everything. Da da da. And he's like, well, we're casting a commercial, and I think you'd be great for the husband. You know, would you be up for like meeting the director? And so I was like, okay, you know. But again, I was like, all right, I don't need this. I'm out of that world. I'm on, and just one thing led to another. Found myself on set, you know, shooting a commercial for Acura, a national commercial that ran, you know, all summer
Yeah.
a few years back, and it just, you know, it cosmically came back in that way, and in a beautiful way, because it was a lot
Yeah.
of fun to do that and be a part of it. But I didn't want it, so that's why I kind of like, here it was, kind of right back in my face, and in a good way.
Yeah. And there's some parallels there as well to art as well, of, you know, when you try to force art, or you try to, um, make art that maybe you think the market will value or really
Yeah,
care about, but doesn't resonate with you. And,
yeah,
you know, that doesn't go well. Usually you, if you do that, you mistime the market has moved on by the
yeah.
time you finished it, and then you don't like it. So
And the
you
blockchain doesn't forget.
exactly. So, so
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah. So, so it's really cool. You know, your life story of how it's evolved, you know, to, you know, kind of these different, which these kind of goals that appear different on the surface maybe, but, you know, you
yeah,
really were developing these skills through all of this to, you know, do what you're doing now, and doing it successfully. Right.
yeah,
Is to build that perseverance, and, you know, and even acting, you know, it's an art form, right? It's just, it's a different type of art form. Right. So, as photography or, you know, generative art or anything, the visual arts, like, I think it's pretty cool. But did you, when you did acting, like, did you do, like, you mentioned the method, were you into that type of, when you thought about acting, like that method acting type thing?
No, I mean, you definitely, and especially when you're young at it, you're trying different things, and you know, whether it's Stanislavski or you're reading books about this method or that method, and everybody in town has, oh, you got to go to this class and you got to go to this teacher, and this is the one that's going to get you. She's worked with this, and so you definitely like stick your toe in a lot of different ponds, trying to figure out which one works for you, you know. And for me, I think because I've always enjoyed the from a theater perspective, I've always enjoyed kind of playing army or playing cowboys and Indians and all the rest of growing up, that I didn't have a problem with kind of taking a role. But I think when you start to get into some of the deeper roles within acting, then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I got to tap like dark stuff, or I got to tap like really heavy things that either have happened in your life, or you can kind of make it happen in your life to get there. And those are the moments I think that really separate for me. And I really appreciate watching great acting theater as well as, you know, television and film, because of that. When you can appreciate how far you have to go emotionally to display that and to actually have it resonate for an audience, it's a beautiful thing, but it's also just incredibly heavy on, you know, on the actors. And I think that the talent that your normal person, your normal run-of-the-mill theater goer doesn't understand. They can feel it, wow, you know, when it resonates, but they don't understand what that takes out of the actor, or what goes into that. And so again, I really appreciated my time in that world, and I value a lot of the friendships I made from that time, as well as the thicker skin, which kind of, it set me up for not only shooting, you know, in the commercial world where you don't get all the jobs, or people don't always, like you said, get what you're trying to do. And then even in the fine art world, I've appreciated, hey, this is what I made, and maybe people like it, maybe they don't, but this is my artistic expression, and without taking it too personally. So it definitely primed me for where I'm at now. And then the one last little piece, the technical piece through all that I skipped over, was rather than working in the bars as a waiter, as an actor in between all of that, I actually got a job in the tech industry. And I was working at the time, it was called CKS out of Cupertino, but they had a satellite office down here in LA. And they were like digital marketing. But it was in the shift that was happening with home video was changing to home entertainment. There were just DVD players, Blu-ray was just coming out in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I started out as an intern, and then was promoted, kind of did some graphics design. So I became proficient in Photoshop, Photoshop 1, Photoshop 2 at the time, Quark, like all of these. You know, there I was, that was my day job, and I was skipping out to go to auditions, you know, on breaks and stuff. I juggled that. But what that gave me, I had the rise and the fall of the .com era under my belt, because talk about an amazing time of sushi lunches, massage chairs every week. Like people, it was incredible.
Awesome.
And you're getting like stock options. I'm going like, you know, 22 years old or 23 years old. And I'm going like, this is incredible. This is like fake money. This isn't, you know, I just not even do anything. And there's this .com. I'm going to go E-Trade and put money on that. So you're making money, and all of a sudden, that bubble burst and it just crushed down. And so there's a lot of lessons learned there for me that I have been able to utilize, I think, within the crypto scene and within where we're at now. I've seen that same hype and that same excitement of something new, and then going like, but I know, like, this is not a point A to point B.
You can get the sense of, okay, this is euphoria, or you start you know the hallmarks of it, or you're at least a little bit more sensitive to it than maybe someone in their first bubble rodeo.
Right, but also through it, I feel like this is the exciting part too. It's like this is where your Google is going to come out of. This is where your Amazon's going to
Yeah.
come out of. This is, there's going to be the hallmarks and the big winners of this.
Yes.
Everyone's are still around building and creating things, and we don't know kind of how this is all going to take form. I'm sure we'll talk a little more in depth about that, but that was where this whole .com rise and crash helped me. Again, from I didn't know it at the time, but it was like creating a foundation for me to what we're doing now.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's a good segue. I think like let's move into kind of the NFT space and things like that. I think, in Web3, I think it's really cool that you've recognized, that you were around in that, late 90s bubble. And, we saw obviously a bubble in NFTs and crypto in 2021. That is now, definitely cooled. I think it's picked up a little bit on the crypto side and on the meme coin side, obviously. But as far as NFT goes, it still feels pretty winterish out here.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I also think that the core technology behind this I'm still a big believer in it. But it's bubbles and these big bull runs and whatever you want to call them, they never happen in the same place twice. It's always, there's gotta be, before that happens again, there's gonna be some fundamental change. This technology is gonna be tweaked in a way, and I think it needs to be more mass market is like where it needs to go. I think, if you look at 2021, it was still a very small percentage of like the overall public that still own an NFT, right? Like,
I mean,
it's
like
just,
you're
yeah.
talking.
So it's run by like that whole market was completely run by, I think definitely the demographic was, people that had money and had discretionary spending, obviously. So that helped, and were willing to put their money in. But I still think that we still haven't unlocked the vast majority of the pie for this technology. And I think that this next phase of whoever is going to win this next phase of it is going to take this technology, I think, and going to make it a lot easier and more friendly, user friendly, and really figure out some really broad market use cases for this that catch on, and really start to take off, and that everyone, it doesn't have to be like, people that are pretty, tech savvy like ourselves, where we're comfortable, creating a wallet and saving a seed phrase and all this type of things, and actually, are careful enough, hopefully not to get hacked, and that takes a lot of cognitive load and that a lot of people don't want to even enter into, right? So yeah, I think it's interesting.
And the part I'm really excited about, I think, and we've talked about it, is the opportunity that artists now have to work with devs and work with people that their worlds wouldn't normally have. They'd be parallel lives, they'd be parallel ambition, and now all of a sudden, I think we have art, we have commerce, and we have the devs, all these left brain, right brain people working together.
It's really interesting
with this idea,
because I don't think that's happened before, really. And now that I think about it, that it's, you have a bunch of, because of this ability for, okay, we actually can, like, that digital art is actually a thing now. It's not like, before, where it's just, okay, it's just online, but there's really hard to sell it unless you print it out, right? And then I'm just selling prints and then on Shopify or something, which is still a great business. I know that you do that as well. But this whole concept of like, okay, an NFT is this digital this actual thing that exists digitally, right? And that really brings, like you're saying, it makes the natural evolution of kind of, like you're saying, technologists, artists, and all of that, like, really can come around that technology and really work together, like you're saying, like, and build things.
Well, And I think it's going to really help with the onboarding. We've talked about, like, I have one of the Samsung frame TVs, and I think that the
Yeah.
more that displays are able to, you have normies who can actually see it and be like,
Yeah.
oh, well, okay, so you own this, like, you own this, like, okay, I see it now, I get it, but I can use it too. Like, yeah, you can use it, you can right click and save all you want, but guess what? My name's on it because I own this
Yeah.
piece. Like, and then they get that, and they get, and from an art perspective, you get, I'm able to have the message that we talked about earlier, that, and have the feelings that I get from an art piece, but now you have an ownership aspect to it, to where, yeah, you can share it and, put on your phone and everything you want, but there is a great feeling that you own that squiggle back there, that's yours,
Yeah.
and this one's mine, and I think those are the types of um, interactions that for me have been able to onboard people, or for at least them to be more open to, oh, it's not just cartoon monkeys,
Yeah.
and I think that has done, this bear market has done more good in that respect, to where everything's cooled down and you can have those conversations. And I really feel, again, that the art's going to lead the way, um, to onboarding, more than just the financial, which I'm a big proponent of being able to, my tokens, my wallet, and being able to have that ownership there. But I really feel like art is going to lead the way for people to understand what blockchain can do, for displaying, for also just from an ownership standpoint. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be very interesting. How do you feel like about, I think we're in this, you talk about digital displays and things like that. We're in this kind of in between time. At least I feel like it. As you've collected my work. I've done prints and really like to do prints. I know you like to do prints as well, but it
Yeah.
always is kind of strange because these NFTs, they're digital works, right? Like even photography,
Right.
at least what you're doing now is digital. So you feel like that's the native medium, but then we're printing it out because, at least in my point of view, like the technology isn't there to really make it as compelling as a print is for a static work. But I don't know what you feel about that.
Yeah, no, there's definitely an interesting kind of through line there, because I still shoot film, and I know we've talked about film, offline, that we both enjoy shooting film, and
Yeah.
there's a great feeling of printing, or even just scanning, you going through your negatives and finding things. There's a really cool feeling that goes along with that. That it isn't until you do it, you actually go through the application, that you get it. I think it's harder to explain, but when you do it, you go, oh, okay, I get it now. And
Definitely.
that's true, and that's always been true with printing my work. Like, when I printed, especially large pieces, putting them up in a gallery and getting up, and you see all the details there. And there's a romantic feeling to actually printing that, with ink. So the digital side for me, I think that's where I'm headed more towards this multidiscipline art that I feel is going to be more the future of. And I feel photography wise, um, it still has its place. And I think from a digital perspective, it's going to grow, and it becomes easier for you to shoot and, put something on chain. But the stuff that, like, you and I are working on, the stuff that I'm working on next, it's allowing layers and maybe some motion and some other
Yeah.
aspects to storytelling, like I was talking about earlier. You have one frame to tell your story, and with that in mind, what we're able to do now, on chain, and share that, and have, your entire story being told, with the one image being maybe your canvas, that then you're able to add on to as an artist. I think those are the parts that I'm really excited about.
Yeah. It's just, it really, I don't think, I think like, the blockchain of itself and what it allows for is a medium of itself, right? Like if you choose to embrace it that way, but the whole thing of, art blocks and generative art, but also beyond that, the information that's in the blockchain, and, I know some artists, like, are really embracing that. I'm interested in artists doing that more in the future, of like, pulling in like, like, like what I've done with dots, I'm really interested in that. Like with,
Yeah.
kind of, especially the part of allowing the collector to say, okay, like you pass in the dots and then that's going to affect the mint. Right. And like Jack
Yeah.
Butcher has done stuff with checks
Yeah.
related to this too, where it's like, it's almost like the art is not just, or even Sam Spratt, like with the whole player thing and the Counts of Lucy, and it's like the medium becomes almost a community in a way. Like this,
Yeah.
you're making art and you're making that type of and there's art pieces that are related to this, but there's also this other layer that is interactive, that is
Well,
not just interactive like traditionally, where it's like, okay, I have like a game or something that I'm clicking. It's like, no, there's like an interactive layer that only the blockchain by transactions would allow in a decentralized way. But yeah.
And I think also, even from a collectors being your community way, I think Dave Krugman's done a really great job with a number of his projects with Drip and his cars. And I think that's the type of thing to where it's opened up opportunities for me, even in the print side, that I now look at my collectors differently that collect my print work. I look at them more like I've looked at my community of collectors on my, on my NFTs, to where I go, hey, these people, they're rooting for me.
Yeah.
And they're rooting for me to do well in my next project. And then you kind of, you create a relationship because they collected your piece. And then, I think that's something that I've taken into the traditional world more, to where I'm a little bit more open to, hey, oh, this person bought my piece. Oh, cool. Like, let me just send them an email and chat with them, whatever.
Yeah.
And then, hey, I have new stuff coming out. If you ever want to know about that, not just a mailing list. It's not different than that. It's more of on a personal level.
Yeah.
And people have been really receptive to that. People have really enjoyed all of a sudden being treated. And I think that's something that, for me, this space led the way to that. It opened up me not looking so transactional at my print sales or selling my art. Just looking at it, go like, hey, these are all collectors, people that like my stuff. Maybe there's opportunities to kind of create a community here as well. And I think that's been an interesting thing that blockchain has created from a collecting space.
That's 100%. Let's talk about film a little bit, because you brought it up, because that was something, obviously you said you didn't do much photography, the disposable cameras when you were a kid, but it sounds like when you got into photography, it was already kind of in the digital space. When did you discover film?
Yeah, no, I absolutely, it was. And I still, and like my dad's Minolta SR7 up there, and but then I have all my Mamiyas now, and I so I definitely, probably 2014, I shifted into, okay, I was shooting more digital, but then I really was, and I laughed when people say this one, but I use it all the time. It's like, it slowed me down, because I was, at the time, I think, I was 5D Mark II, 5D Mark III, and it was like, everything's, faster shutter, like higher ISO, push everything, like, let's go, more megapixels, come on, boom, boom, boom.
It's crazy.
And then I started to see, Sony came out, Sony A7Rs, and then it was like, 8 frames a second. I was like, at this point, you're basically shooting video and you're pulling a screen grab from it. It was like, it was, for me, it was no longer about kind of capturing that frame, everything, the decisive moment. We talk about, you set up your compose and wait for that image to happen. And that's something that I do a lot of with my travel work, that I find the scene, I find the colors, everything's right, and I'm waiting for the sun to get perfect, and then, okay, everything's good for this next 20 minutes. Now I just need the right subject to come by. A few of those, my can pieces that I've put up, those are the ones that I just had everything ready, and they were all on film, and I'm sitting there waiting for it, and boom, here it came. And I think that's the part. Yeah, there you go.
I just wanted to bring it up with some of these, but this is a great one. And
so and that one, that was just a shoot from the hip. But I think Yeah, and then
Yeah,
there's
look
a
at that. That's
composition,
beautiful.
compose and wait. So those are the ones. And I think if you go back, there's the old man and the young guy sitting back one more.
This one?
Second, yeah, on the left hand. Yep, yeah. Hit that one. And so that was one of
If
those.
anybody's listening to this later, just check out it on YouTube, and there'll be you can go to these videos and see these. I'll make sure to put it in the show notes.
That's what we call a hook, a clip. You gotta log in. You gotta see what we're talking about.
Exactly.
But so these two guys were sitting there, and I was like, oh, they're great. It was like the old guy reading the newspaper, the young guy looking at his phone. And I was like, so I had the composition set up, and I just it was hiding in the shadows like photographers do sometimes. And then she walked by, and it was
perfect.
like the colors of it all. And
her dress with with the water and everything, his pants, like it's just really great composition.
And this was shot on CineStill 50D, which
nice.
is like it's a really cool film, but it's really difficult.
Yeah,
you need really bright, it's 50 ISO. You need something to pop, and it was middle of the day, and it was one of those things that I loved that image. But for me, from a film perspective, I was like, all right, I hope I got it, because also on this trip, I ripped a film. I ripped a,
oh man.
I ripped one, and I didn't know it until I went 36, 37, 38. And I started going through them, and I was like, oh shit. And I went up, and sure enough, like frame 2, I'd ripped it, and I lost it. But that's something from film that's also an exciting.
It's amazing. And like, so my story with photography, I like yourself, I got on Instagram pretty early and was just doing iPhone photos, and actually got a good following on Instagram just using an iPhone, and really enjoyed it. I was posting like just quotes with it and things like that.
Yeah.
And loved doing photography like that. But, that was like the early iPhones, and there wasn't much you could do. There was just like basic filters and things like that. Like I actually just posted a lot of times like no filter, just to, like that was the hashtag to be like, I'm not putting any filters on this, like humble brag, like.
But it was also 640 by 640 square.
Exactly. So the limiting aspect of it was cool. Like that's why I really liked it. And then like I never got into digital photography. Like I bought a camera and I would do it, and then the cameras, it just got so complicated. And then I was like, I just never liked it because you'd have to take all these shots, and there's like limited shots. Then you have to go back and spend hours and hours going through them, and to try to find, one that you like. Then now you have to boot it up in Photoshop or Lightroom, and now you're editing it. You're looking at like preset packs and like figuring out like just what look you want. There's just like way too many options, and it's just like so overwhelming for me that I like basically gave up photography, and I was like, all right, this is not for me, because I don't want to spend this much time on this. It's like not like, if this is what it needs to be a successful, quote unquote successful photographer, you have to do all this. Like, I don't even want to be as a hobbyist, like, because this is stressful to me. And as you've met my brother Brett, and he's a photographer, and he did digital for a while too. But then I'd say, I don't know how many years ago it was, but maybe it was a couple years ago, 3 years ago or something like that. He just kind of came to me, and knowing me, he was like, no, you need to do film. Like you will like it a lot because of this reason, that it really like you said before, really slows you down, really is a lot simpler, right? You can really be in the moment. It was funny, this last weekend, my family went to Portsmouth in Plymouth, rather, in Massachusetts, and we took a little staycation here, and I took my Nikon mirrorless with me, but I also took my Leica M5. And it's just so funny because I was like taking, I took the digital camera out and I was taking shots, and then I loaded up my M5 with like a roll of that new Phoenix. I think it's Phoenix 200. Is that what it is? Yeah.
Yeah.
That new one. So I loaded that up, and then I I looked down and I already took like 11 shots. Like
Slow down.
in like 5 minutes after like going to the digital, I'm like, oh man, like what am I doing? Like I think this is a digital camera.
I always tell it's interesting, and especially in this day and age of iPhone and for us always being able to shoot as much as we want because we have the iPhone with us, and the images are getting so good. But I always tell prospective parents, like when they have their child, I said, get a film camera. Obviously, I'm biased towards the Leica, so I was like, get a Leica M6, like and I think there is a beautiful romantic memories that you're able to create.
Yes.
A work of their lives, of your child's life on film that is much more valuable than them having, 60,000 iPhone images of everything that's happened. You're going to do that anyway. But I think those images that you're going to shoot throughout their childhood on film become so much more impactful when I look back at them, and I tell people about this, and it's been tried and true. People have always come back and said, oh, we have it sitting around, and sure enough, we take those images, and those images end up being the one that we love, that we print out. That is the one that tells the moment of the day, this one image. And so also for me, is from a rangefinder perspective, talking about slowing it down, is like, that's what I also appreciate, that the image has to be lined up, everything, that lighting's right, everything, and then you're focusing and you're bringing everything together. And I think there's a connection that you have as a photographer to the image when you are manually doing that much to capture it. Some people, hey, you know what, I'm going to shoot 10 frames a second, 80 megapixel image, and I'll figure it out later. That's fine. That's the way you want to do things. I'm maybe it makes you happy. This for me connects me to the images that I shoot on film, and it creates something that I've found for the audience, for viewers to say, like, there was something different about that image, and I think that's what it is.
Yeah, and it's also just like it's the relaxing aspect of it that I can't look at the photo. I have to. It's also very, as like an engineer and like someone who's done code and is very technical. Film is very technical. Like like you don't have auto mode. Like you have to get a sense of even just shooting film and getting. You start to get a sense of. It's like any art, and this is something I was talking to Brett about, is that, which is something that's really cool, is like, if you want to be a good artist, whatever your craft you're going for, you want to develop the base sense of that, of whatever that art is. So if you want to be a great chef, you have to eat a lot of food, and you have to be able to taste food accurately, right? Like you should be able to eat a dish and say, okay, this has X, Y, and Z in it, and I can taste that, and it maybe needs more salt or something, to think critically, like, about things like that and accurately. If you want to do music, like the best thing you could do is like be able to listen to music and to pick out the individual instruments and like recreate what they're doing. Right. Like, and for photography, that is like seeing light, right, is one of the most important things. And, shooting film really forces you, especially if you don't have a light meter, to like actually start to get a feel of, okay, Sunny 16 technique or whatever of okay, what should my settings be here to actually like take a properly exposed photo, right? Like
you become more aware of your environment as well.
Yeah.
Again, shadows to light, what time of day am I, what film am I shooting on? All of a sudden, there's a lot more going on, which for me is a good thing. But I think you also hit a point that I wanted to say was about the musician listening to music and the chef eating food. And Instagram, for me, as much shit as it gets overall, has been an incredible training ground. Has been an incredible place that I've become a better photographer because of it.
Yes.
Again, from the early stages of, like you said, iPhone only, being able to have your composition had to be perfect. You were dealing a 1x1 square. You had to like use that correctly. your lighting had to be good because the iPhone at the time, and the threes and fours couldn't push much, so you had to have good lighting. And then you had to deal with, okay, now I'm sharing this, but is story, or is there a story to this image that I can
Yeah.
hook and tell the audience. But what that did from a consumption perspective for me is I started following other photographers around the world, seeing the way that they saw where they lived, and I was like, oh, I love what they're doing with this, and I love what they're doing with that. And so now when I do workshops with photographers, I always say, find people whose images you love and try to do that. And you're not going to. You're going to actually end up making your own images from it, because you start to put your own. You try to copy it, and you try to be like, oh, I want to do it like this guy, and I want to do it like that guy. And then next thing you know, you're now creating your own piece of work. I mean, I love Slim Aarons. I love Massimo Vitali.
Yeah.
And those are the types of things that those are the images I love. So for me, I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to shoot like Peter Beard. And I start to put that into my work, and I start making my own stuff because
Yeah.
of that. And I start creating your own style, because you're not going to truly emulate it. Things are, eras different, times different. And that's how you find your own style.
Yeah. The Slim Aarons, I love Slim Aarons. Such a great photographer, and
Yeah.
I have his poolside book. We have it on our coffee table downstairs, and
Oh, yeah.
every time I look in that book, I'm just it's just so amazing that he would get into those kind of parties, but also like just he was able to just blend in. Like they weren't, like he's able to get those candid moments, and they're candid, but they're just so like just that time period in that lifestyle and things like that they feel candid, but they also feel far away from like
Yeah.
us, right? From like
Yep.
our normal day to day, which was
Exactly.
the intention of it, which is just like it's great like work. It's like stuff that I think will never
Yeah.
get old,
I think I have a couple. Yeah, I have a couple Slim right there. But yeah, that's
Yeah, and I definitely see the influence in your work for sure.
yeah. Well, and again, beach wise, it's those blues and whites and warmth, and playing with the warmth and the cool, all of that. And then again, from a composition standpoint, it's been fun to mimic that, and then yet create my own images from it, and
Yeah,
create Pete's work. So
that's great. And did you have you found like a good developer near you that you really like trust and gets your because that's the thing with film, is that it's important to like the scanning is important as well to find the character of the image, and what now it's like what emulation of certain old scanners, right? Because those scanners
yeah.
aren't around anymore that you maybe wanna that you're going for, the look you're going for. So it's
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm very lucky in Los Angeles. Obviously, we have a lot of options, but Photo Impact for me in Hollywood has always been they've done a great job. And which is a funny story is it wasn't until I was using them for a number of years as a photographer developing my images that I realized, I was like, you guys used to be up on Highland. I was like, you guys printed my headshots. I was like, oh my, and it was like out of my, he's like, yeah, back in the day when you actually had print headshots,
yeah.
you had to go get 200 of these things every few months, and you resume on the back, and it was a whole process. These days, everything's digital in that pretty much, but I was like, what a full circle this is. This is great. So those guys a lot of their work back then was headshots. Photographers would send them and then you'd pick your proof, and then you'd get 200 of them done or whatever. But then I was like, oh man, but here I was, bringing my fine art stuff into them and sitting down with them, like you said, as far as going through what I was looking for on the developing, pushing or pulling, as well as on the scans on things. So that was a fun full circle moment, but it's also important. Rather than just sending stuff into labs, I do think there's a good opportunity for relationships to be built there, as well as education for you as the photographer for them to, give you notes. Oh, looks like this is, you overexpose this a little
Yeah.
bit, or those types of things, and have that. So it's cool.
What are you shooting mostly now as far as film stocks go? Like, do you still use the M6 like a lot? I know you do a lot of digital work too, though. But I'm saying, like,
Yeah,
in
no,
film, yeah.
and MP is my go-to
MP,
film
yeah.
35. Yeah, that's been my go-to for a number of years. And then I have the Mamiya RZ67,
Yeah.
which is, it's a tank, but I
Yeah.
still really enjoy shooting portraits on that, or even some landscapes, because there's a really cool that 6x7 image, and you can blow them up beautifully, but there's a nice rendering that happens. I love
You don't know what you're
the
talking
110.
about. I lug around a Pentax 6.7, so you can't complain to me about heft.
I don't know, but
That's
you have
why.
better handles on that. I have a big box. You just have the little handles to be able to run with that. I actually have an old Pentax lens I'm going to send you, because I have had it forever, and I don't have a Pentax anymore. So
Score.
remind me of that after. Yeah, no, it's a cool lens. But yeah, so the Mamiya, that one, and then even was it? These days, these are fun to even just kind of run around with these days.
Yeah, I have
the old Olympus little point and shoots.
Yeah, I have a Canon Sure Shot. I don't know if you've heard of those, but I got it for, I don't know, like $50 on eBay, and it's awesome. Like, it's got autofocus, it's got, everything you want, and it's
onboard flash.
Exactly. Onboard flash. Yeah. It auto rewinds, auto forwards, like, it's perfect for like family stuff, or like you got kids running around quickly, like where you just feel like you're not going to be able to really hit that shot, or it's just like you maybe you just don't want to have the expensive camera on you, and so that's what I use it for. I just always have it with me, and like it takes some really cool shots, because that's one of the things too, is that even like I like using cheaper film stocks actually more. I'm like going for that, because there's something like about that grainy look that is actually kind of cool, right? That sometimes.
Well, like, I mean, Visco made a whole program about that, and I think there's still a number of apps that continue to come out that all they do is make your digital image grainy. It's like, and kids love it. They're like, oh my god! But yeah, imagine that was actually the film stock that made that. Imagine how that would feel.
Yeah, so it's cool. Like I still like, and I'll ask you definitely. I want your favorite film stock. You mentioned Cinestel 50, but I mean I love, like, the Portra 400 and Ektar 100. I use sometimes, and I've been doing some slide film too with the Exachrome, but all those are really, there's something about the color maxes, the kind of budget film stocks that because I think the professional ones, they obviously have finer grain, but which is cool, but it's sometimes, it's almost like it can seem digital, because like,
it's too good.
That grain is fine, right? Which is the goal of it. Back in the day, it's like, you wanted finer grain because you wanted it to be more like that. But it's almost like now it's like there is something to it to be like, hey, I actually want it to be more grainy, because then it's like more clear that it's film, right? So I don't know, but it's
no,
cool.
I agree. That's cool, and especially with the prices of film these days, I think grabbing some of those budget ones isn't a bad idea. And I always tell that even to people who are starting out and wanting to shoot more film. It's like, hey, feel free to go large, and with those, grab a pack of that rather than
Lomo 400 is good too.
Or Lomo, yeah. But yeah, Kodak, I'm a Portra 400. I do love, just especially the beach, and just
Portra's a great film stock. Like
just it gives me morning till night. It gives me a great option to do it all.
I think if I had to pick one, that would be it.
I mean it's an any day, every day you can get around with it.
Skin tones are good. That's the thing with like Ektar. Like I don't love the skin tones on it. Like landscape, it's good, but it can get pretty red. On the skin.
No, that one's definitely difficult. I've enjoyed Ektar when I'm wanting to shoot like middle of the day, but that's where the Cinestel 50 kind of overtook it for me.
Yeah.
That I'll use for that midday harsh light. But I definitely, and then 160, I'll do the Kodak Portrait 160 for on the Mamiya. I usually shoot that for portraits. I like what that does.
Yeah.
And yeah, those are kind of my go-to film these days. And I also, I'll go through phases where I'm like shooting film for a month. I'm loving it, and then I'm like, take a little break.
Yeah.
But also what I do, shout out Leica. What I do a lot of the times is, oh yeah, I've got them both right here. Is my so I got my MP.
Yeah.
I got my M11. My M11, which I love the opportunity. It's like a film holder, or a lens holder. So, they got my backup lens on it in my bag, and I'm shooting digital, but I'm like, oh no, this is the one that I want for film. So I'm kind of measuring up everything, composing it.
That's cool.
Getting it all right. And then I have, let's say a 90 on this one and a 50 on this one. So I'm able to have, cool, let me swap that lens. I'll shoot the 50 on this for this image.
That's really cool that to carry it around too, and that you're framing up the shot. And because they're both rangefinders, you can, in their Leicas too, it's like you're pretty confident that you're going to nail this. The settings are going to carry over.
Absolutely. And again, from a lens perspective, I which is what I love about them, how small and how sharp they obviously are, but to be able to swap them back and forth, that is such a valuable thing from a travel perspective. If I didn't, want to have a old school zoom on things, which obviously we don't use on Leicas as on the M bodies, but it's more traditional.
You do 50 millimeter is like your,
I'm a 50 guy.
Yeah, I'm a 35. I've come around to 35. That's what I have.
I like to get up close and personal. There you go.
Yeah,
so 50,
I mean, it's just personal taste. I think I just have always shot more landscapes. Like that's like when I did Instagram and things like that. I always was really interested. I'm still really interested in landscapes. I think the 35 is like a little bit wider for that use case. But obviously for portraits, I think 50 is better. But on like the Pentax 6.7, I have like the 110 or whatever millimeter.
Yeah, 110s that's
like the god lens for the Pentax 6.7 that everyone is
same on the Mamiya. I love that 110 at 2.8 is just a beautiful, like for portraits.
It's for portraits, beautiful. It's you got to go there. But awesome. I hope everyone listened. They're like, wow, these guys are like, this is like film porn,
film nerds.
Like
exactly. We're supposed to talk about blockchain. What's going on?
They're like, what is going on? Like, I hope maybe we'll get some people to try film and maybe pick up a $50 point and shoot on, or find one, from a relative that maybe is around, and getting it in working order and finding a lab and just shooting a roll and and getting into it a little bit. I think that would be pretty cool. I think it's definitely a really cool hobby, and I love it too. Like we talked about, slows you down, and also with everything so digital and screens and everything like that, I just feel like you can be there and you can actually enjoy what you're doing with other people and with your family or whatever. And you don't feel as much of, okay, like, with the digital, like, let me check the shot, and you just start to become consumed in your own, shooting, really. Right. It's the same type of thing with a phone, or it's another screen, right? You feel more present in the moment and more immediate. I don't know if I think you've said that same thing.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
No, you're right. Well, and shout out also to like the film communities. I love Beers and Cameras is a great one. They're based out of San Diego.
I'm definitely going to have some more film photographers on, in addition to Brett. I want Brett to come on, but I also want to get some other, like, of even the people that are outside of that are kind of, I see on the Instagram space. I would love to get one of them on, that even though they're not big into the crypto and NFTs, but I just
yet,
but maybe we'll get them in there. But Cool. Let's talk about generative art. Like, this is something that how we kind of met. You've collected some of my work. You've been with Art Blocks. You obviously are friends with Eric Snowfro, and you know him. And that's how we were originally connected, through him. So, what I guess what got you into generative art, and what's your interest in it? Like,
well, shout out. Yeah, absolutely. Like, so 2021 was really that summer, 2021, it kind of opened my eyes to blockchain and what was going on. I was interested. An IRL friend here in Los Angeles, Mr. Meta 21, shout out Andrea, awesome guy. He kind of took me under his wing and just like brought me over to his house and was like, all right, this is what you need. You need a ledger. You need to don't trust any links. Like, kind of gave me the whole rundown. And then through it, he started to show me accounts and started to show me, okay, this is Art Blocks and this is generative art. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And he had a Meridian. He had a few other pieces that were just like, I was watching them kind of load on screen. I was going like, oh my God, okay, I get it. I get it. And again, this is before I think photography hadn't really started to make its entrance into the space as much. They were starting to be. So generative art, obviously, this is the middle of the heavy bull run had started. And I think that this is where I then understood how blockchain technology was creating or how art was be able to be displayed. And then from a collecting standpoint, I was like, okay, cool. I can buy some of these and they'll be in my collection. So through that, totally by chance, Josh, JDH, we've been following each other on Twitter. This is before, I was interested in the space. I think it was photography, or there was something that we had a connection on, and I don't even remember when it was. But then I remember seeing, I was like, oh, wait, he has a punk. Oh, I know what a punk is now. Oh, and then I started like DM with him back and forth, and then we started chatting. And then that's when he was, more of an evangelist to Art Blocks and everything going on. Then I started digging into, the space. And that's when I started, some of my first pieces I collected were, based on that. I was like within my price point, because I kind of definitely like limped into it a little bit. Like, okay, let's see how this feels. And I was like, oh, cool. I'll
share some of your collection here, and we can go.
And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I
there.
Yeah. That's my squig. So Eric and I did a trade for the squig, which was really cool. That was a big moment for me. From I obviously always loved the squigs, but also he wanted to collect one of my film because he loves film as well. So it was like, so we did a trade for that, and and then that
I'm jealous that you got one of these.
Dude,
I don't know what you did. Do you know the identity of the person that commissioned this?
You must. I've heard rumors, but I don't know exactly who it is. But I do love this piece.
Well, and put in a good word for me, because I would love one of these.
I will. and I want to, like, that's something I would love to have displayed on, truly on like my frame. And the technology is not there yet for, to be able to pull from my wallet. But I was like, to be able to do it 24 hours and have it like have it going all day, and then reset the next day is so cool. Yeah, and this one is also one that I'll shoot portrait sometimes. I'll sit and watch this one. I love that this one's mine. Like, it's so cool for me to have that. And what a character Alexis is anyway. So
he's great,
and he's somebody I've enjoyed. I've collected his stuff on Tezos. I've collected, a number of his things, and some of his other offshoot projects that he's kind of created. And I love how he continues to experiment. And so he's somebody that I love his work as well. And you were one of the earlier pieces that I collected as well.
Yeah, I remember printing yours.
Me, yes,
I think
I still have it.
I remember printing
in my new house,
this one. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember
no.
printing this and sending it to
Well,
you.
and I
It's
remember
just a
I
great
remember
one.
going through the process of like, and it was the
Yeah.
very sweaty palms, like minting process of, am I getting it?
Yeah.
And then I was like, yes, I got a piece because it was shit was going so fast
I
back
know.
then. It
Yeah. It
was
was
like,
crazy. I mean, that's
felt
the
like it was,
thing. Like both my collections on Art Blocks, I did fixed price. A lot of people were doing auctions then, but I was like, I just wanted to do just a fixed price
yeah.
at the time and just like, so just go right away and, the people could see their outputs and things like that. No waiting.
And what I loved about my output, and again, and I think I told you that originally when we first started chatting after I collected it, it was like I loved the paper feel, the digital, and
Yeah.
yet there was an ink and paper, the canvas, all of it there, and there was something for me that resonated. And then I also love the minting process. I was like, I don't want to trade to get another one. Like I love that
Yeah,
I
it's like
minted this one.
you were there and you provided that randomness that then results in that
Yeah,
final output. And yeah, these ones were great to print. And I really I spent a ton of time like figuring out what paper, which ended up being Hamill William
yeah,
Turner, and just getting the texture right on that. And I ended up buying my own printer. Like I printed all these myself, like with the
awesome.
Epson printer and things like that. I learned a ton about printing, which was in this project, in addition to obviously doing the project on the generative art side and the coding and things like that, but on the art side. But also I learned a lot after with printing, which
Yeah.
has been really helpful just to learn that kind of trade a little bit and really think about, okay, how do we make a analog printed representation of a digital work, right? So
Well, you did it, and I still have mine, so I just need
yeah,
to
no, that's
find a good
great.
frame for it.
And
So,
this Arcadia by Zach, this
oh
is
yeah,
one of them.
so cool.
I really love this
Well, it
series.
was funny. I started to find like there was a randomness to it, but then there was also a collection to it that I started to find myself getting purple. I was like, there was a whole
Yeah,
lot of purple that ended up in my collection that I think on my Deca I
I
actually ended
actually
up
don't
like
own any of these,
creating.
but I need one. Like this one is I feel like this
There,
was one that just is maybe it's a little underrated. I don't know. Like
absolutely, totally
it's a
agree.
great series, and just the
It,
texture
it,
of it, like it's beautiful compositions for it being generative art, like really nice.
vanishing points as
Yes.
well, so there's like a composition there, but even from a color perspective, I love the fact that he was able to
Yeah.
there's like an 8-bit for me, like 8-bit like Oregon Trail meets like
Yeah,
80s
but it's
video
the
game,
shadows
like
and it's
yeah,
crazy. Like, yeah,
it's cool.
it's
And then he has a very canvas feel like you have
yeah,
as
no,
well. I think
he nailed
that's
the
it.
canvas and the paint feel to it for
Yeah.
sure. And like,
So we
yeah,
should probably go sweep that floor before this
I
gets
know exactly.
published.
Like,
So,
yeah, this is pretty crazy. Yeah, no, it's
yeah,
great,
and
great
the
stuff.
Suns, I had looked at a couple of those as well. Yeah, the Suns were awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
let me get back
those
here.
are.
And then,
Let's see who
yeah, just
else.
some like,
Is
you got
it?
some really cool Ghost in the Code.
Yeah,
This one was the one before that they did before Memories of Digital Data, which I have, which is another great project.
yeah,
But is this one animated? I don't know if I've looked at this before.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah,
is. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, it
yeah. No,
also
it's really cool. Yeah, it
does
follows your cursor around and
follows
stuff.
cursor. Interesting. Really cool. Really cool.
Again, I think these are. I mean, from a slept-on perspective, in general, I just
Yeah, right.
there.
Especially
It's
right
just
now.
like people are gonna.
This one's really cool. I
Yeah,
remember these. Really cool.
yeah. So no, it's been really fun, kind of just collecting pieces, minting as well as buying on secondary, finding ones that there. This one I had which one? Scroll back up. It was time travel in the subconscious mind.
Yeah,
That one I have a print of as well.
I do
He
too.
sent out a print
Jimmy
of that.
sent
Okay,
those out, and
yeah,
Jimmy's
he
an
did a great job on
artist
it.
that really like his work. Like he's really like I really liked Gravity 12. I have one of those that I actually bought one of his like one of ones as well. He's just an artist that I really respect and have really loved.
His
Like,
stuff it's so complex, and yet
yeah,
there's like a simplicity to it as well.
yeah,
He really
exactly.
doesn't.
Like just like super feels really organic forms, and the colors
Yeah,
are great, but it's also like it's not too much. It's just like you're saying, it's
yeah.
simple, like it's really cool. Like I really like Jimmy's work.
And then my Ana Lucia, I got the loop.
Yep, Loom, yep,
That's yeah, loom,
for
and
sure. It's a great series as
that
well.
again, yeah, yeah. And then I think the other one, oh, my moments. There
Yep,
you
you
go.
have a couple
That was it.
moments.
I have a couple of moments.
Sergeant Slaughtermelon. Yep, that one.
Yeah. Scroll back up. There was one other that I wanted
Okay,
to
sorry, go ahead.
point out. No, it was up. Where was I? It was above this. Oh my Cosmic Reef.
Yeah,
You see, oh yeah, and I said Strata, which I really, I think that series again was a really cool.
yeah,
And this was the Moonshine, and I think I minted that Moonshine,
I like
but
these.
I've really liked these, and again, I think that one's a little bit of a slept on project from a
Yeah,
visually. I just think they're really cool, and
yeah,
the
definitely
color
strong.
color palettes on them are there. And he's also, I think he's Norwegian too. So
Yes.
I was a little bit partial to my homeland.
Yes.
That happens
Awesome.
in a good way. Like we said earlier, that you can discount somebody because of their name or whatever. And I was like, oh, he's Norwegian. He's
Exactly.
probably
Yeah, for sure.
he's a
Oh,
Viking.
that's awesome. Yeah. And so there's so many great projects, especially now, now that prices have come down and everything's cooled off. There's some really cool deals to
You
be
get some
had.
steals, man.
Yeah, out
Absolutely,
there, some really
absolutely.
great generative art. And I think like just because of the way the market is too, like there was just a lot of people, a lot of artists that really like they took out their best stuff and put it out at that time, right?
Yeah,
Because they knew that the market was demanding, you got to have your best stuff.
bring it.
And
Yeah,
I don't know if we'll see that, just the way the market is now, that like how much time, people, I think we'll continue to see quality, but there was definitely something about that time period that like I don't think will be emulated, at least exactly. And even when I was talking to Generative Artworks last week, like even before like pre-Fidenza, when I was there getting into art blocks and things like that on the first factory projects and stuff, like it like that error was even different than this error. Like it was,
yeah,
there's different seasons of different what people are making in generative art just in general. And so we'll definitely, but it will continue to evolve. And I'm art blocks is obviously having a pause right now, and they're gonna they'll definitely be back with curated. But I'm curious to see what the curated series evolves into, and with
yeah,
studio now is coming out where kind of us art blocks artists that have released before will just be able to, like, I currently have my own engine contract, which I release dots on with Prohibition and
yeah.
things like that. But that's going to kind of be, we're basically going to be able to just release through Art Block Studio, which will be a front end for kind of a lot of this stuff that instead of right now, the artists are kind of having to build their own front ends and things like that. But
Right.
the studio will be the kind of a front end for that, and also kind of the stuff that we've been talking about, and Pete, I've been mulling around ideas and things like that for a while now of maybe collaborating together and things like that. But this is
Yeah.
our Box Studio, is something that they're going to support Flex, which means that we could bring in photographs and things like that. So maybe that's an
Yeah.
option. We haven't talked
Absolutely.
about
Well,
this, we're talking about it the first time here, but I think
yeah.
would be a cool thing to consider for us.
Absolutely. Well, and that's something I think we can definitely say that you and I have had pretty in-depth conversations of trying to find a way that the generative artist and the photographer artist can work together.
Yeah.
So we've definitely batted around some project opportunities there, and I think this is the kind of thing from a dev artist collaboration, and obviously I think you're even more of a unicorn in that you're both in that you understand the code and you're an artist. And I think this is also opportunities from a artists helping other artists by showing the way, by doing cool things and being like, hey, let's go, you guys can do this too.
Exactly.
And I hope our project can kind of do that as well.
100%. Like, I think it's I'm always open to, you know, push the boundaries in any way we can. And I think, like, you know, mending, one way to always do that is to kind of blend mediums that haven't been blended before and to push them.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be really cool. And yeah, so Art Blocks is great. Maybe we could jump in. I have your Super Rare profile up. Let's talk about that a little bit. You know, we talked about some of your shots, but you know, most of your NFT, I think all of them, or have you sold NFTs other than Super Rare? But pretty much everything's been on Super Rare,
No,
right?
everything's been through Super Rare. Yeah.
And you've been there for a while on Super Rare.
21. So I was definitely I was lucky in that I applied and was accepted early on, you know, before the, you know, photography really kind of took off there. I was one of the earlier artists on there. And so I never released on Foundation or any of the other ones. And but so because of that, I was very curated with what I was sharing. The film images there were part of a triptych that I did with Decca, but sold them through Super Rare. And I think NorCal won that one, and then it split. One went into Decca's vault, and then the other one is in my vault. So it's a triptych, you know, 3 images from Paris on Portrait 800. It's pretty cool. And then and then I think I did a bidders edition on that. Which you may or may, I don't remember if I sent one to you on that, but it was the full piece together, and then I did art around it.
It's
and
beautiful.
that was just airdropped. So these are all, I think these are all in film. Not all of my images that I've done up there are in film, but these
is a great one.
all,
this is available if anybody is looking.
There you go. Looking at jumping in there. You can buy it with Rare. Yeah.
This is a great one. Hopefully it loads. But and again, I know some people are listening to the audio later. Please check out the come back and, you know, look at the show notes to see and Pete's Super Rare profile and stuff like that. We're looking right now as a shot down Broadway in New York City, and clearly it's a film shot, I can tell. And unless you have some crazy emulation.
No, this one's film all the way. And again, this is a cool one from that I printed out and looked at, and just pulling all the detail out of it, as well as, you know, it's an August thunderstorm, so you can see by what they're wearing, and yet, you know, the dresses are there, and the ladies giving, you know, kind of the eye checking the two pretty girls out as they're, you know. And I love picking out different things.
And
every
was this
time.
candid? Like, these aren't models or anything. This is just happening. This is street photography.
Street shooting.
Yeah.
This is it. This is me walking on the other crosswalk on the other side.
How did you feel about it? One thing, I am becoming more drawn to street shooting, I think. Like, it was really cool. Like, the other day we had the eclipse, you know, came across the country, came up to New England where we were. And like, it was funny because I had such a, like, everyone was trying to take pictures of the eclipse, but like, I just wanted to take pictures of the people looking at the eclipse. Because it's just so weird of, like, you know, like, how often do you have people wearing funny glasses staring into the sun? Like, you know,
well, and I love, you know, the eclipse, but every photo looks the same. Like,
exactly.
It's the eclipse. You got it. Everybody's got it, but not everybody. And also the nice thing about the visors, and they're not paying attention to you at all.
Exactly. That
they're
was like
locked in.
Yeah, exactly.
Blacked out.
I was with my family, and I asked this couple of girls that were sitting on lawn chairs, and I was just like, you know, can I take a picture of you? But I really didn't even need to. Like you could have just taken a picture.
That was nice of you.
Yeah.
But from a street photography perspective, I shoot differently than some other street. I'm a little more respectful of. I don't like to be up in people's faces. And even when I shoot things like this, if it was embarrassing or something that was a little out of whack, I wouldn't post it. I wouldn't keep it, and I probably wouldn't have even shot it. And even being a dad, I'm also very, you know, like, about other people's kids, because I'm definitely weary of that. So, you know, I have some great street photos that kids are in, but I'm always, you know, is it done in a good way? Am I going to share it? And, you know, there's definitely a line that I feel photographers need to respect.
Yeah,
In that.
yeah, it's just like the street photography for me is like I guess it's maybe a good impulse of like where it's you feel a little bit you know that you don't want to get up in people's faces and things like that, which I think you see if you follow, YouTube or Instagram or something like that, and you see some of these street photographers, they're, jumping out with flash and like, like
Right in your face.
right in your face. Like, you know what I mean?
Skilled
like,
in. Yeah.
What's that one kid's name? Trevor, is it Wisecliff or something like that? I don't know if you've seen him, but he is, he's in New York and he takes some cool shots, but it's very like he's got a Leica, I think M6. He's got some flash on it, but he's just like like in people's faces with flash, and it's like he's got I'm sure he's gotten punched a couple times. Like
it's too much. Well, like if you go to my next New York photo that I took, the skateboard.
This one's beautiful though. Everyone should check this one out.
Appreciate that.
I think the what film stock is this? Because this is again.
I put it in there. I put it in. I don't remember off the top of my head. I put it in there. It could have been 400.
Portrait 400. But
there you go.
It looks grainier than like maybe it's because of the it's a little darker. Maybe it was just like the ISO. I mean, not the ISO. Obviously, you can't control the ISO.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like it just seems a little bit more.
Or maybe I shot a stop under. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, it looks a little bit more grainy, which I like that look of. Like I said before, of like when I look at this, I instantly can tell that it's a film shot. It doesn't. It has imperfections that are really beautiful imperfections rather than. A digital image would be much smoother, which is, I think, that's the benefit of is everyone's higher resolution, but like we're talking about is that like, sometimes more is not better.
Yeah. Well, and I think if you go to the next image, I think that one's Fuji super. It was Super 400, I think.
This
the
one?
Skateboarder jumping.
Yeah, this is beautiful. Yeah. So this one for people listening is just like a skateboarder jumping, but again, a great film photo and candid. Is it the Brooklyn Bridge behind there?
Yeah. And that was one of those things too, from a film perspective, is like you really have one shot of doing a kick flip over it. Is it going to turn out?
Your lighting has to be good too. What was your ISO on this? You said it was
what was that? If you scroll down, I want to say this was Super 400.
I don't know if you put it in
Fuji
there,
film. I'm pretty sure I did. I
tried
to keep
maybe
this.
Over here. Is it in the metadata? Oh yeah, nice.
It's in the meta.
You put it in the metadata. Awesome.
Yeah. No,
that's great. And the camera, with this whole, the lens. That's awesome that you do that. That's really cool to see that. Yeah.
With all the film shots, I wanted to try. And again, this is something that's great that I love about cataloging your images online. Anyway, is to be able to do that and hopefully years from now be able to have those. You can sort by. Oh, these are all. Pete's Kodak Portrait 400 images.
Yeah, that's awesome. So and Superior 400. That's not discontinued. That's not the.
It is. Yeah.
Oh, this is the discontinued one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And was this expired? But you had one that wasn't expired.
No, this was back in 2015, maybe 2016. I think.
Yeah, that's tough to find. So, Brett gave me a roll of that on 120. I think it was expired, but I haven't actually developed it yet, so I need to develop that. But
it's got that Fuji greenish, your whites have a little bit of that greenish hue that Fuji just does, which in this kind of thing worked well. I really I like it, and I love the guy like taking a photo with his iPhone back there. But again, the thing for me on this photo is everybody composes nicely, but it's also I think everyone looks cool, and nobody would be sad that they're in this image. I think I captured a moment in time.
Yeah, and exactly, and like that's what I mean too. Is like you gotta just doing photography and like learning about it too is like like it really. I don't know. You just understand it and get more appreciation, like things like you really couldn't do this in low light because you get some motion blur, right? And the fact that
Right.
that's like immediately what I think of. I'm like, oh, okay, like, yeah, you're at 400 ISO. So, you do have a little bit more than if it was 100. So to get your
Right.
shutter speed fast enough to not get any blur of this guy jumping, right? Like doing this
Right. No,
when he's midair.
froze him well. I'm sure,
Yeah.
probably, I was probably at 1,000 or,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So,
be able to pull that off. But I definitely wasn't wide open. I mean, you see the detail back there pretty well.
yeah, exactly. So it's interesting that you just have developed too with of the knowledge. Like, I don't think I would know, like, just in my of knowledge level of like shooting film and just photography of like, okay, where do I need to be at that I'm going to know that I'm going to not get motion blur on this, right? With this guy jumping,
Right.
right? Like, that's another skill that I feel like I haven't developed yet. That maybe,
I mean,
yeah,
that for me has been a trial and error. It really
yeah,
has, as far as like, keeping notes, especially when film. I like to keep little notes of like, what I was shooting, what I was doing, because sometimes it's not, you don't have the metadata
yeah,
on that. You don't know, you don't know what it was, and so I think that those are helpful for honing your skill within film. But also the other great thing about it is just actually doing it, like putting yourself in environments that
yeah, and just
that
seeing the
are
results, right?
challenging.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I think that's something that, like, I definitely don't shoot. I don't know, like, I don't shoot moving subjects like that. Like, I don't do wildlife stuff really. I don't do sports.
Mm.
So that's something that maybe I should be, thinking about, to just try to, see if I could freeze, to get the settings down, to be like, okay, I know I'm confident that I'm gonna, get this player or something, and
Yeah.
and be able to freeze them, So that's cool, but awesome. Yeah. Let's talk about, so we went through super rare. You're going to be, you sent me this image, that I want to pull up.
Yeah.
Maybe I can
This
pull it
is
up
kind of the
here in this.
the next phase, and I can definitely show a little
Oh,
work.
is not, hold on. Let me see if I can open it here. Give me a second. Or I may be able to share the screen as well, but I was thinking if I could drop it in here, or maybe, nope, here it is. It's in the other screen, but let me try to get it over here and share it. Just take me a second.
No worries.
I can update this. But while we're doing that, I guess, tell me a little bit about the piece that you're, it's definitely a different style than what you've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe just tell me about, what made you think of kind of this style. I know I've seen this kind of style from you and things like that, but I don't think the public has seen it. And
Yeah, I did one that I airdropped to. I did a bitters edition, and it's on my OpenSea that I did from Paris. So it was all three of these images that were together, and then I did a combination of drawing, my own hand drawing, as well as AI, and I'm
yeah,
utilizing AI to complement my sketches, as well as using them as a base to work off of. The style, the idea, the kind of journaling idea came from Peter Beard and what he did, throughout his career of using the image as a canvas. And then he was a little more hands-on with using blood and paint and those types of things on canvas, on true
yeah,
canvases, images that he did. But I like the opportunity that where we're at now, technology wise, to utilize AI and utilize, my iPad and my Apple Pencil, and to draw on, and to continue telling that story of what once was just the image as the canvas, but to be able to continue that all around, so through borders, or as well as drawing on the actual piece itself. And what this new medium gives me is a place to share it, but also and this one's still a work in progress, which I love the opportunity to kind of like talk through that before I mint it, because these are the what I'm seeing is, for me, this makes me happy, like creating this type of piece. I'm still a photographer. I love creating a still image, but I really love spending the time of actually creating a whole scene around it that tells the story beyond the image that you see there. So
I'm getting it up
yeah,
still.
no, it's up. I
Here
can
it
see
is.
it. It's yeah.
Now people can see it. I put it on your screen, but now they can see it. So
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So I'm just making it so here. Yep, it's here. So people can see it on the screen. So it's basically like a almost a you know. So tell me a little about this image. So it's you're saying it's you've done all these illustrations as well, right? Like that's one of the big parts of it, is that you've actually done these illustrations, which are amazing, like, and really detailed too.
Yeah, so it's a combination of, again, the image I shot here in the South Bay in Los Angeles, and then the illustrations are a combination of I pulled AI and pulled images, or pulled sketches there, and then did my own sketches on top of those, as well as filled in and added color and different plays of swatches and ink and that type of thing, and being able to, again, from a multimedia perspective, utilize everything that technology has given us these days. So it's been cool, and it's been something from an experimental standpoint, be like, oh, I love this, oh, I don't love this, oh, this is great, this is not great. And in this piece, still, there's still a couple pieces that I'm not fully happy with before it goes on chain. So it's fun to kind of show it off here, and then what it's going to be when I mint it. But this is the next phase for me, that I like this opportunity to
yeah, it's beautiful,
do this and use it to tell more of a story on my image as a canvas to begin with.
That's it's a beautiful shot, and that's awesome. And when are these going to be available? Like that kind
probably
of
over the I mean, I'm looking at, I may do the lazy mint that Super Rare is now offering, to where you put it up, and then as somebody wants to buy it, it mints it, versus the traditional way of doing it.
Yeah.
But this one will probably be up in April, before May. It'll be up. So
great.
And yeah, it's tough, as you know, with your babies. You go like, oh, I spent so much time on it, but maybe it was better before I kept digging too deep into it. Maybe I need to go back to the other versions.
Definitely.
Or maybe I just need to, again, from what we talked about with acting earlier, maybe I just need to commit, and this is the piece, and I don't need to,
it's hard to know
work
when
on it
done
anymore.
is done. Yeah, for sure.
When done is done. Yeah.
Well, it's beautiful to me, and it's
cool.
Great colors and great detail. I was zooming in on it on the film so people could see the detail on it, and and it's just, again, it's just like really your it's also like, definitely in your vein as well, photography wise, being in California, and it's definitely like a California shot, which is awesome.
Cool, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So what else, like, where can people follow you and find more information out and things like that?
Well, Pete Halvorsen across the board, Instagram, obviously I'm there. I share quite a bit kind of behind the scenes there of daily life, of photography, more stories these days than posts, but still mixing a good post every now and then. On X, I made the transition to Farcaster, Warpcast, but it's been a little bit of it's a new beast. It reminds me of back in my old IRC days, the MIRC, when late 90s, where it's like channels, and it's a whole different way of speaking. So I feel a little boomery, like, working through it. I'm trying, but I also understand, I think, the opportunity that particular platform will give the conversations that we were talking about earlier between with devs and artists and collectors, and I think that there's more of a through line there for people to work together and actually meet and talk than X gives us. So there's I think those are my kind of the three main spots. I'm based out of LA, Manhattan Beach, but I do quite a bit of travel, and I also do routinely do photo walks, around the country, around the world. I've done them around the world, but also around the country. I'm going to start doing those again at post COVID. You kind of
That's
slowed all
awesome.
of
So
that
people
down.
can come out and join you and learn
Yep.
photography and kind of
learn photography, but more than that, I usually become the vehicle for them to meet each other in a certain community. Done them in Boston, done them in New York, done them in Vegas, all over.
Awesome.
And
Next time you're in Boston, sign me up.
We'll do it.
I am definitely. I'll get some people as well. We'll get a
We'll
group
do
together.
it. We usually launch at the Leica store there in Boston. We do a really cool walk.
That's a beautiful over on Back Bay over there is great for a walk over there. So that's awesome.
Good spot.
It's a great Leica store spot over there and on Mulberry Street, and it's a great location.
And then shout out, I was just in New York for the Leica.
Yeah, I know. How was that? That was seemed
amazing.
Like it was a great time.
Great time. That building's the crown jewel now of the meatpacking district. They just did a great job on it, and they also want it to be a community spot that people come to talk photography, to meet. And so I'm going to definitely be spending more time out there in the coming future. And we're talking about maybe me doing a gallery in 2025 out there too. So that would be awesome. An awesome opportunity. So those are the things that are in the works, and I'm definitely very accessible online. I love to, from a community standpoint, kind of chop it up and grow together as artists. Like I said before, I grow watching other artists succeed and try things, and I hope people feel the same way about my work and what I do. So
definitely, yeah, I think they will for sure. And Pete, it's been great chatting with you and to doing this episode. I know we can go on for hours, but we'll have to schedule a round two and do a round two because it's been great. So
maybe when our project,
exactly.
Project X launches,
exactly.
Too much.
No alpha.
No alpha given here. But in the meantime, TGIF, enjoy your Friday.
Exactly. Yeah. Take care. Hope the family's well and stuff like that. I think next time I'd love to chat about, kids and things like that. I think we didn't touch on that. There's the number of areas we can go into for sure. Yeah. Travel. I love to get, so we got to do a round two and get into those at some point. So that'd be great. Good. All right, Pete.
All right.
Thanks for being on. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And we'll be back probably next Friday with another guest on Studio Visit. So tune in 2 p.m. I'll let everyone know who that's going to be next week, but we'll get this up on, the podcast platforms early next week as well for the audio version. So Pete, thanks again. And thanks everyone for listening. Take care.